Jiho Park sat in the back row of the classroom, trying not to look as tired as he felt. The chair wasn't made for humans, so his back hurt a little. Everything on Station Harmony 7 was built for aliens, and Jiho was the only human in the advanced problem-solving course. Actually, he was the only human in the entire school. The classroom was huge. It had to be, because some of his classmates were really big. Minho, who sat 3 rows ahead, had 4 arms and stood almost 8 feet tall. His species, the Grexians, were known across the galaxy for being great at math. Then there was Tyon, a Quellan who looked like a floating jellyfish with tentacles that glowed soft blue when she was thinking hard. She was probably the smartest student in the class. Professor Velnis floated at the front of the room. She was a Luminera, which meant she looked like a crystal sculpture that moved and talked. Light passed through her body in strange ways, and sometimes Jiho had to look away because it hurt his eyes. She was famous for giving impossible problems to students. People said that failing her class was normal, and passing it was something to brag about for the rest of your life. "Good morning, class," Professor Velnis said. Her voice sounded like wind chimes. "Today we start with a simple warm-up exercise." Jiho heard several students sigh with relief. A simple exercise from Professor Velnis was still hard, but at least it wouldn't be one of her legendary nightmare problems. "Here is your task," the professor continued. A hologram appeared in the air above her, showing text that translated automatically into each student's language. Design a portable solution that allows an individual to survive in a hostile environment without advanced technology for 72 hours. The parameters are as follows: extreme temperature changes, no breathable atmosphere, potential physical threats, and limited carrying capacity. The classroom exploded with activity. Students activated their neural data pads, connecting their minds directly to powerful computers. Some students started talking to their AI assistants. Others formed quick study groups discussing theories and possibilities. Jiho just pulled out his stylus. He looked at the problem on his simple data pad and started drawing. He sketched quickly, adding notes in Korean and English. His roommate had once asked why Jiho didn't use a neural data pad like everyone else. Jiho had explained that humans couldn't actually connect computers to their brains safely yet. The roommate had been shocked. Apparently, every other species in the galaxy had figured that out thousands of years ago. Around him, the other students were deep in their work. Hyaron, a Silthian whose skin glowed different colors when she was excited, was running environmental simulations. Doyen, a Korvax with computer implants visible under his silver skin, had his eyes closed as he calculated something complex in his head. Jiho kept drawing. He added measurements, wrote down materials, and made little notes about backup plans. It reminded him of the time his dad had made him plan a camping trip by himself when he was 12. His dad had been very serious about it. "Plan for the worst," his dad had said. "Hope for the best, but plan for the worst." 15 minutes passed. Jiho read through his solution one more time, checking for mistakes. It looked good. He pressed the submit button on his datapad. The movement caught Tyon's attention. Her tentacles stopped glowing and waved in his direction. She stared at him for a moment, then went back to her work, but Jiho noticed she seemed confused. Minho also noticed. 2 of his 4 eyes looked back at Jiho while the other 2 stayed focused on his holographic workspace. The big alien frowned, which looked strange on his face. Jiho didn't think much of it. Maybe they were surprised he finished early. Or maybe they thought he gave up. He wouldn't be surprised if they thought that. Most of the other students treated him nicely, but they also seemed to think humans were kind of slow. Earth had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago, and human technology was still pretty basic compared to everyone else. He pulled up his notes for his next class and started reading. The textbook was about quantum physics, and Jiho understood maybe half of it. The class was taught by a Zentari professor, who kept forgetting that humans saw fewer colors than most species. So half the important diagrams just looked gray to Jiho. 30 minutes later, students were still working hard on the problem. Some looked stressed. Hyaron's skin was flashing orange and red, which Jiho had learned meant she was frustrated. Doyun was talking quickly to his AI assistant, his hands moving as he rearranged holographic models. Professor Velnis floated between the rows, observing her students. When she passed Jiho's desk, she paused. Her crystalline body shifted, angles changing as she looked at his submitted work. She stayed there for a long moment, not saying anything. Then she floated away to her desk and began reviewing something on her own computer. Her body flickered with light in patterns Jiho couldn't read. 5 minutes later, the professor's voice rang out across the classroom. "Attention, students," everyone looked up. Some students were clearly annoyed at being interrupted. "I need to verify something before I grade the first submission," Professor Velness said. "Please continue working." Jiho saw several students glance in his direction. Taeyeon's tentacles waved in what might have been amusement. Minho's forearms crossed in a pattern that looked like the Grexian version of shaking your head. "They think I failed," Jiho realized. "They think I gave up or got the problem completely wrong." He couldn't really blame them. From their perspective, he'd rushed through a problem in 15 minutes that they needed hours to solve. And he hadn't used any fancy computer simulations or AI help. Just a stylus, a data pad, and his own brain. Jiho went back to his quantum physics notes. Whatever Professor Velness was checking, he'd find out soon enough. Maybe he did get it wrong. The problem had seemed straightforward to him, but maybe he missed something important. Maybe there was some alien concept he didn't understand. But as he read his textbook, part of his mind kept going back to his solution. It was solid. He was sure of it. Everything he'd designed would work. He'd even included backup plans for the backup plans, just like his dad taught him. The classroom stayed busy with noise and light. Students worked on their solutions, unaware that something unusual had just happened. In the back row, a human teenager had finished a problem in minutes that was supposed to take hours. And the professor, one of the most brilliant minds in the galaxy, was trying to figure out if what she was seeing was actually possible. Time ticked by slowly. Jiho tried to focus on his reading, but he kept wondering what Professor Velness was checking. Around him, the greatest young minds in the galaxy struggled with a problem that, to him, seemed as simple as packing for a camping trip. If only they knew, Jiho thought, that where he came from, every camping trip was a survival exercise. Every hike could turn dangerous. Every day on Earth was practice for staying alive on a planet that wanted to kill you, but they didn't know that yet. They would soon. 45 minutes had passed since Jiho submitted his solution. The classroom was still full of activity. Students typed, calculated, and argued with their AI assistants. Some were starting to look worried. This simple warm-up exercise was turning out to be harder than expected. Professor Velness suddenly appeared at the front of the classroom again. "Students, I need your attention." The room went quiet. Holographic displays vanished as students looked up. "We have our first completed solution," the professor said. Her crystalline body sparkled with light. "I have verified its validity. Jiho Park, please come forward and explain your approach to the class." Every head turned to look at Jiho. He felt his face get hot. Public speaking wasn't his favorite thing, and doing it in front of the smartest aliens in the galaxy was even worse. He walked to the front of the room, his data pad in his hand. Professor Velness projected his solution onto the large holographic display so everyone could see it. The other students stared at it in silence. Jiho's drawings looked simple, almost childish compared to the complex 3D models and mathematical formulas they were used to seeing. "Please explain your solution," Professor Velness said gently. Jiho cleared his throat. "Okay, so the problem said we need to survive in a hostile environment for 72 hours, right? Extreme temperatures, no air to breathe, possible dangers, and we can't carry too much." He pointed to his first drawing. "This is a thermal suit. It has multiple layers. The outer layer reflects heat when it's hot and traps heat when it's cold. The middle layer is insulation. The inner layer manages moisture so you don't get too sweaty or too dry." Taeyeon's tentacles waved. "But what if the outer layer is damaged?" "That's why there are multiple layers," Jiho said. "If one layer fails, the others still work. Not as well, but well enough to keep you alive." He moved to the next drawing. "This is a breathing apparatus. It's a mask connected to compressed oxygen tanks. Each tank lasts about 8 hours, so you need 9 tanks total, plus 1 extra in case something goes wrong." Doyen, the Korvax with computer implants, spoke up. His voice was sharp. "That's incredibly inefficient. Why not use a molecular recycler to process the local atmosphere?" "Because the problem said no advanced technology," Jiho replied. "And also, what if the recycler breaks? Then you're dead. With compressed oxygen, if one tank fails, you just switch to the next one." "But carrying 9 tanks would be heavy," Hyerin said. Her skin was flickering yellow with confusion. "About 40 pounds total," Jiho agreed. "It's heavy, but a human can carry that." I don't know about other species. He continued through his solution. Emergency rations that wouldn't spoil. A thermal shelter that folded up small but expanded to protect from weather. A knife, rope, and basic tools. A first aid kit. Water purification tablets. Everything was simple, mechanical, and had backups. Minho raised one of his forearms. This solution has thousands of potential failure points. Any one of these items could break. Yes, Jiho said. That's why you carry repair supplies. Duct tape, spare parts, sewing kit for the suit, and you learn how to fix things before you go. But what if you can't fix it? Minho pressed. Then you use the backup, Jiho said. He was starting to feel frustrated. Why was this so hard to understand? You always have a backup plan. And a backup for the backup if you can. The classroom erupted in noise. Students argued with each other in a dozen different languages. Some thought Jiho's solution was clever. Others thought it was primitive and dangerous. Professor Velness raised one crystalline hand and the room went quiet again. Class, let me show you something. She activated a new hologram. It showed a complex simulation running through different scenarios. Jiho watched as his thermal suit design was tested against temperature changes, his oxygen system was challenged with various failures, and his shelter was hit with simulated storms. The solution held up. It wasn't pretty and things broke, but the backups kicked in. The person in the simulation stayed alive for all 72 hours. Then the professor loaded some of the other students' submitted solutions. These were beautiful, elegant designs using advanced technology. Molecular recyclers that converted any atmosphere to breathable air, energy shields that protected from any temperature, nanomaterials that adapted to any threat. The simulations ran. One by one, the elegant solutions failed. A recycler broke down after 40 hours with no way to fix it. An energy shield failed when its power source was damaged. Nanomaterials couldn't adapt fast enough to a sudden temperature change. The classroom was completely silent now. Jiho's solution is the only one that would actually work in real-world conditions. Professor Velness said quietly. Every other design, while theoretically brilliant, fails when faced with unpredictable variables. Doyen stood up. But that's not fair. We designed for optimal conditions. He designed for failure. Exactly, Professor Velness said. He designed for reality. Reality is messy. Reality includes failure. A solution that only works when everything goes perfectly is not a solution at all. Jiho felt strange. He hadn't thought he was doing anything special. He just answered the question the way anyone from Earth would answer it. Where did you learn this approach? Hyerin asked. Her skin was now a deep blue color that Jiho had learned meant she was thinking very hard. I don't know, Jiho said honestly. This is just how we do things on Earth. My dad always said you should prepare for the worst. When we go camping, we pack for every possible problem. Camping? Taeyeon asked. Yeah, it's when you go out into nature and live there for a few days. You know, for fun. The alien stared at him like he'd said something crazy. You go into the wilderness voluntarily? Minho asked slowly. For entertainment? Sure, lots of people do it. You hike, swim in lakes, cook over a fire. It's nice. And you need all this equipment just to camp? Hyerin's voice was quiet. Well, it depends where you're camping, Jiho said. In the mountains, you need cold weather gear. In the desert, you need sun protection and extra water. Near the ocean, you need to watch for storms. But yeah, you always bring the basics. Food, water, shelter, first aid kit, tools. What if you forget something? Taeyeon asked. Then you improvise. Make it from what you have around you, or do without. The class was processing this information. To them, going into nature meant visiting carefully controlled parks with safety systems and emergency transporters. The idea of deliberately putting yourself in danger for fun was alien to them. Professor Velness spoke again. Class, this is an important lesson. Intelligence is not just about finding elegant solutions. It's about finding solutions that work in the real world, where nothing is perfect and everything can fail. She turned to Jiho. Your solution receives the highest marks. Well done. Jiho returned to his seat. As he walked past the other students, he could feel them looking at him differently now. Not with the polite condescension he was used to, but with something else. Confusion, maybe, or curiosity. He sat down and tried to ignore the stares. His solution wasn't special. It was just common sense. At least it was common sense to a human from Earth. But as the class ended and students filed out, still discussing what had happened, Jiho started to wonder. Maybe what was common sense to a human wasn't common sense to anyone else in the galaxy. Maybe growing up on Earth had taught him something that couldn't be learned in schools or from computers. Something about survival, about expecting things to go wrong, about being ready for chaos. He packed his bag and headed for the door. Behind him, he could hear students already forming study groups, trying to understand this new way of thinking. Jiho smiled to himself. Wait until they found out that his camping solution was actually the easy version. Wait until they learned what humans considered a real survival challenge. The station's common area was crowded that evening. Students from all different classes came here to eat, study, and socialize. The ceiling was high and curved, with windows showing the stars outside. Jiho sat at a table in the corner, eating something that was supposed to taste like chicken but didn't really. He noticed groups of students whispering and glancing his way. Word had spread fast about what happened in class. Jiho tried to ignore it and focus on his food. "Excuse me, Jiho Park?" a voice said. Jiho looked up. A Threxian male stood by his table. Threxians looked like tall reptiles that walked on two legs. This one wore a translator badge that said his name was Seojin. "Can I sit with you?" Seojin asked politely. "Sure," Jiho said. Seojin sat down and immediately 3 more students appeared. Yuna, a Zentari female who worked as a cultural liaison, Taeyeon from his class, and another student Jiho didn't know. "We wanted to ask you some questions," Yuna said. Her species looked almost human except for the silver patterns on their skin and their completely black eyes. "About your thought process, if that's okay." "I guess," Jiho said, putting down his fork. "The way you solved Professor Velnus's problem." Seojin began. "You didn't try to find the perfect solution. You found a solution that could survive imperfection." Why? Jiho thought about it. Because perfect doesn't exist in the real world. Things break. Weather changes. You get tired or hurt. Plans fall apart, so you have to prepare for that. "But that's such a negative way to think," the other student said. "Always expecting failure." "It's not negative," Jiho said. "It's realistic. Hope for the best but plan for the worst. That way, when something goes wrong, you're ready." "Does everything go wrong on Earth?" Taeyeon asked. Her tentacles were waving slowly, which meant she was genuinely curious. Jiho laughed. "Not everything, but enough things that you learn to be ready. Weather changes fast. Animals are dangerous. Even plants can kill you if you're not careful." The students looked at each other. Yuna pulled out her datapad. "Can you tell us more about Earth? Most species don't talk about their homeworlds much, so we don't know very much about yours." "Sure. What do you want to know? What's a normal day like?" Seojin asked. Jiho shrugged. "Pretty normal, I guess. You wake up, eat breakfast, go to school or work. Same as anywhere. But what about the dangers?" Taeyeon pressed. "What dangers?" "The ones you keep preparing for." Jiho thought about this. "I mean, they're just normal things. You check the weather before you leave so you know if you need a coat or an umbrella. You watch where you walk so you don't trip. If you go hiking, you tell someone where you're going in case you get lost. Basic stuff. You have to check weather every day?" Yuna was typing rapidly on her datapad. "It changes that much?" "Yes, sometimes. Last year it was sunny in the morning and snowing by afternoon. That was weird, but it happens." The alien stared at him. "What about dangerous animals?" Seojin asked. "Are there many?" "Depends where you live. In my city, not really. Maybe some aggressive dogs sometimes. But in the countryside there are bears, wolves, mountain lions. In the ocean, sharks. In Australia, basically everything wants to kill you." He said it like a joke, but nobody laughed. They looked horrified. "And people still live in these places?" Taeyeon asked quietly. "Of course. You just learn what to do. Don't run from bears, make yourself big. If you see a mountain lion, back away slowly. Don't swim at dawn or dusk when sharks feed. It's all common sense once you learn it." Yuna was scrolling through something on her datapad. Her face had gone pale. "Jiho, do you know Earth's galactic classification?" "No, what's that?" She turned the datapad to show him. On the screen was Earth with lots of text in various languages. At the top was a big label, Class 12 Deathworld. "What does that mean?" Jiho asked. "It means Earth is classified as too dangerous for most species to colonize," Seojin explained quietly. "Class 12 is the 3rd highest danger rating. Only 2 classes are worse, and those are for planets with active volcanism, covering most of the surface or toxic atmospheres that melt equipment." Jiho read the description on the datapad. Extreme weather variability. Tectonic instability causing earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Gravity 1.4 times galactic standard. Atmosphere oxygen levels dangerous to most species. Predator-prey ecosystem with apex predators evolved specifically for hunting. Multiple extinction level events in geological history. Native species show extreme adaptation to hostile conditions. He looked up. This is Earth? My Earth? Yes, Una said softly. The planet you call home is one of the most dangerous in known space. Jiho didn't know what to say. He'd never thought of Earth as dangerous. It was just home. The earthquakes thing isn't that bad, he said finally. We have building codes. Houses are designed to handle them. Your houses have to be designed to survive the ground shaking. Taeyeon's tentacles had gone very still. Well, yeah, otherwise they'd fall down. Jiho, Seojin said carefully. On my world, we have had 3 earthquakes in recorded history. All were minor. We talk about them in history classes because they were such unusual events. You're saying they're common enough that you design buildings for them? Sure, Japan gets them all the time. California too. It's just part of life. The group was silent for a long moment. What about the predators? Una asked. This says humans evolved alongside species that hunted you. That you were prey. I mean, yeah, thousands of years ago, early humans had to watch out for big cats, bears, crocodiles. That's why we learned to use tools and work together. Safety in numbers. Most species evolved in safe environments, Seojin said. We developed intelligence to solve social problems or manipulate resources. You developed intelligence to avoid being eaten. When he put it that way, it sounded bad. Jiho had never thought about it like that. I guess so, he admitted. But we're not prey anymore. We're at the top of the food chain now. Because you fought your way there, Taeyeon said. You didn't evolve in safety. You evolved in a war zone and you won. Jiho felt uncomfortable. They were looking at him strangely now. Not like a fellow student, but like something dangerous. I'm not dangerous, he said. I'm just a regular person. You survived a Class 12 Deathworld long enough to make it to adulthood, Seojin said. That alone makes you extraordinary by galactic standards. Most species wouldn't last a week on Earth. But Earth is amazing, Jiho protested. It's beautiful. Mountains, oceans, forests. The sunsets are incredible. Snow in winter, flowers in spring. Don't you have things like that on your planets? We do, Una said. But our planets don't try to kill us while we enjoy them. More students had gathered around, listening. Someone asked, Is it true that human children are taught survival skills in school? Sort of, Jiho said. We learn first aid, fire safety, what to do in emergencies, swimming in case you fall in water, that kind of thing. You teach children to handle medical emergencies? A Quellan student looked shocked. Basic stuff. How to stop bleeding CPR if someone's heart stops. It's important. Most species don't learn that until university medical programs, the student said. What if someone gets hurt and there's no doctor nearby? Jiho asked. That doesn't happen on civilized worlds. Medical help is always minutes away. Oh. Jiho thought about his uncle's farm 40 miles from the nearest hospital. Thought about hiking trips days away from civilization. It's not like that on Earth. The crowd around him had grown. Everyone wanted to hear about the human from the death world. They asked questions for over an hour. What did he eat? Normal food, but apparently humans could digest things that would poison most aliens. What games did children play? Tag hide-and-seek sports. The aliens were shocked to learn that human recreational activities often involved running until exhausted or deliberately trying to hit each other with balls. Finally, Taeyeon asked the question everyone was thinking. Jiho, if Professor Velness's assignment was easy for you, what do humans consider difficult? Jiho opened his mouth to answer, then closed it. He honestly didn't know. The assignment had been easy because it was just basic survival stuff. But what was hard? I'm not sure, he admitted. I'm not even a particularly smart human. I'm pretty average, actually. They only accepted me to this school for diversity, I think. The students exchanged looks. Their best and brightest had struggled with a problem that an average human solved in 15 minutes. And that average human came from a world that would kill most of them in days. What did that say about humanity? Seojin spoke first. I think we have a lot to learn from you. Not just you specifically, but from humans in general. Your entire species thinks differently because you had to. I guess, Jiho said. He was tired and wanted to go to his room. As the crowd finally dispersed, Una stopped him. Thank you for answering our questions. And Jiho, be patient with us. We're all realizing that the galaxy is bigger and stranger than we thought. And humans are the proof. Jiho walked back to his dorm room, his mind full of thoughts. He'd never felt like a survivor before, just a normal kid from Earth. But maybe normal on Earth meant something very different than normal anywhere else in the galaxy. Over the next week, strange things started happening around Jiho. It began the day after their conversation in the common area. He was in the recreation center, a huge space with different sections for different species. There was a water zone for aquatic species, a high-gravity zone for species like minhos, and a climbing structure that went up 3 floors. Jiho liked the climbing structure. It reminded him of the rock-climbing gym back home. He was halfway up, trying to reach a particularly tricky handhold, when he noticed Taeyeon floating nearby. Her tentacles were trembling. "Are you okay?" he called down. "How high are you?" she asked. Her voice sounded strange. Jiho looked down. "Maybe 30 feet, why?" 30 feet, she repeated. "If you fall, you'll die." "No, I won't. There are safety mats at the bottom, see?" He pointed down at the thick padding below. "Those mats are rated for falls of 10 feet maximum," Taeyeon said. 30 feet is 3 times that. Oh, Jiho hadn't known that. "Well, I won't fall. I'm a pretty good climber." "Pretty good isn't certain. What if your hand slips? What if you get tired?" Jiho thought about it. "Then I'd be in trouble. But that's part of the challenge. Testing yourself, you know?" Taeyeon didn't respond. She just floated there, watching him with what might have been horror as he finished climbing to the top. When he finally made it down safely, she had left. 2 days later, Doyeon challenged Jiho to a strategy game. It was a complex game involving managing resources and predicting your opponent's moves. Doyeon was ranked in the top 10 players on the entire station. They played in Doyeon's room with a holographic board between them. The game had millions of possible moves at any given time. Jiho lost the first round quickly. "Okay, I see how it works now. Let's play again." They played 6 more rounds. Jiho won 4 of them. Doyeon stared at the board after the last game. "How are you doing this? You're not calculating optimal moves, I can tell." "No," Jiho agreed. "I'm just thinking about what could go wrong." "What do you mean?" "Well, in that last game, you were setting up a perfect resource chain. It would have been unbeatable if it worked. But it required everything to go right. So I just messed up one part of it early and the whole thing fell apart. But I had backup plans." "Did you? Or did you have one perfect plan with a few adjustments?" Jiho asked gently. "I had 5 different strategies ready depending on what you did. None of them were perfect, but they were flexible." Doyeon was quiet for a long time. "We're taught to find the best solution," he said finally. "The optimal path." "You're saying that's wrong?" "Not wrong," Jiho said. "Just incomplete. The best solution is the one that still works when things go wrong." That same day, Hyerin came to find Jiho in the library. She looked upset. "Can I show you something?" she asked. She pulled up a collection of files on her datapad. "I've been studying Earth literature. Children's stories. I wanted to understand human culture better." "Okay," Jiho said, not sure where this was going. "Jiho, your children's stories are terrifying." She showed him her screen. "This one is about 2 children who get lost in a forest and find a house made of candy. But it's a trap by a creature who wants to eat them, so they have to kill her by pushing her into an oven." "Oh, Hansel and Gretel. That's a fairy tale." "This one is about a girl who goes to visit her grandmother, but a wolf has eaten the grandmother and is pretending to be her. Little Red Riding Hood, yeah. That's kind of dark when you think about it." "And this one?" Hyerin's hands were shaking slightly. "This is supposedly a children's book about a boy who survives alone on an island. He faces starvation, dangerous animals, and has to create everything he needs from nothing. And this is considered appropriate for children?" "Robinson Crusoe. We read that in school. Why?" Hyerin looked genuinely distressed. "Why do you tell children these stories about death and danger and survival?" Jiho had to think about that. "I guess because the world has death and danger in it. The stories teach you to be smart, to watch out for tricks, to stay calm when things go wrong. They're lessons. Our children's stories are about friendship and cooperation and discovery," Hyerin said quietly, "not about barely surviving." "We have those stories too," Jiho said. "But yeah, a lot of our stories are about overcoming challenges. Because that's life, I guess. Challenges happen, and you have to deal with them." Hyerin saved the files and left without another word. Jiho felt bad but wasn't sure why. The next day, Seojin interviewed Jiho for what he called a research project. They sat in an empty classroom and Seojin recorded everything. Tell me about human education, Seojin said. What do children learn first? Reading and writing. Basic math, science, what else? Safety stuff. Fire drills, earthquake drills, stranger danger, first aid. You teach children to prepare for disasters before you teach them advanced mathematics? Sure. Math won't help you if the building is on fire and you don't know how to get out. Seojin's reptilian face was hard to read, but his tail was twitching. What age do humans learn these things? Fire drills? Maybe 4 or 5 years old. First aid is usually around 10 or 11. And physical education. I've heard humans have mandatory exercise in schools. Yeah, PE class. We play sports, learn to run, climb, swim. Swimming is mandatory. At my school it was. You need to know how to swim in case you fall in water. How often do humans fall in water? Jiho laughed. Not that often. But when you do, you need to know how to not drown. The interview went on for 2 hours. Sojin asked about everything from human diet to human games to how humans handled stress. When it was over, he thanked Jiho and left with pages and pages of notes. On the 6th day, Jiho found a group of students attempting to solve problems the human way, as they called it. They'd set up in the common area with a bunch of practice problems. Minho saw him and waved him over with 2 of his 4 arms. Jiho, perfect timing. We're stuck. On what? We're trying to not think like us, Taeyeon explained. We're trying to think like you. But it's really hard. They showed him the problem. It was about designing a transportation system for a new colony. They'd been working on it for days, and their solutions kept getting more and more complicated. What if we started over? Jiho suggested. Pretend all the fancy technology doesn't exist. What's the simplest thing that could work? But we have the technology, Doyen protested. Why not use it? Because you're trying to think like a human, right? And humans don't have most of that technology. So forget about it for now, they tried. It was painful to watch. The students kept wanting to add complex systems and elegant solutions. Jiho had to keep stopping them. What if that breaks? He'd ask. Then we fix it, they'd say. What if you can't fix it? Then they'd get stuck. They weren't used to planning for unfixable failures. Slowly, over hours, they built a simpler solution. It wasn't as efficient as their original ideas. It wasn't as elegant, but it would work even when things went wrong. This feels wrong, Hiren admitted. It feels like we're dumbing down the solution. You're not dumbing it down, Jiho said. You're making it robust. There's a difference. By the end of the week, word had spread through the entire school. The human who'd solved Professor Velnus's impossible problem. The student from the Deathworld who thought about survival before elegance. The person who always had a backup plan. Students started asking Jiho for advice on their homework. Not because he was smarter than them, but because he thought differently. He could see problems they missed because he was always looking for what could go wrong. Jiho found it all very strange. He was just being himself. But apparently, being himself was unusual in a galaxy where most people grew up safe. On the 7th day, Professor Velnus announced a new assignment in class. This will be a team project, she said. I'm assigning the teams personally. She read out the names. When she got to Jiho's team, he heard gasps. His team was Taeyeon, Minho, Doyen, Hiren, and Seojin, the top 5 students in the class. And him. Your assignment, Professor Velnus continued, is to design a colony ship for a newly discovered world. The ship must house 10,000 individuals, sustain them for 100 years of travel, and prepare them for any eventuality they might face. The class groaned. It was a massive project. You have 3 weeks, the professor said. Begin. As the class filed out, Jiho's new teammates gathered around him. They looked nervous, so, Taeyeon said. I guess we're doing this together. Guess so, Jiho said. We need your perspective, Seojin said bluntly. Our best ideas failed against your simple solution. Maybe together we can create something better than either approach alone. Maybe, Jiho agreed. When do we start? Now, Minho said. We have 3 weeks to merge alien innovation with human pragmatism. Let's see what happens. They found an empty workroom and got started. Jiho had no idea what they were going to create, but he suspected it was going to be interesting. The workroom became their home for the next 3 weeks. The walls were covered with holographic displays showing ship designs, calculations, and endless notes. Empty food containers piled up in the corner. None of them got much sleep. The first week was the hardest. Taeyeon designed beautiful quantum recycling systems that could convert any waste back into pure resources. Doyeon created perfect mathematical models for resource distribution that would never have shortages. Hyerin developed genetic adaptations that would let the colonists adjust to any environment. Minho worked out navigation systems that could avoid any cosmic hazard. Sojin planned social structures that would prevent all conflicts. Everything was elegant. Everything was optimized. Everything was perfect. And Jiho kept asking uncomfortable questions. What if the quantum system fails? He asked, looking at Taeyeon's designs. It won't, she said confidently. The technology is proven. Failure rate is less than 0.01%. But what if it does? Even 0.01% means it could happen. Taeyeon's tentacles flickered with irritation. Then we repair it. What if you can't repair it in time? What if the failure damages the repair systems? What if the person who knows how to fix it is sick? Those are very unlikely scenarios. Unlikely isn't impossible. What happens to the 10,000 people on the ship if your recycling system fails and there's no backup? Taeyeon didn't answer. Jiho could see her tentacles drooping. She knew he was right. Similar conversations happened with everyone. Doyeon's perfect distribution system assumed everyone would follow the rules. Jiho asked what happened when people didn't. Hyerin's genetic adaptations required complex medical equipment. Jiho asked what happened if the equipment broke. Minho's navigation system was controlled by a central AI. Jiho asked what happened if the AI malfunctioned. By the end of the first week, everyone was frustrated. You're destroying everything we create, Doyeon said angrily during one late-night session. Every solution we propose, you find a problem with it. I'm not trying to be difficult, Jiho said. I'm trying to keep people alive. Your solutions are amazing when everything works. But on a 100-year voyage, everything won't work. Something will break. Someone will make a mistake. You need to plan for that. So what do you suggest? Hyerin asked. Her skin was flashing red with stress. We use your brilliant ideas, Jiho said. But we add backups. Simpler systems that can take over if the advanced ones fail. Manual overrides. Redundancy. We make it so that when things go wrong, people can still survive. That will make the ship bulkier, Minho said. Less efficient. Yes, Jiho agreed. But it will still be flying after 100 years. Efficiency doesn't matter if you're dead. The second week was different. They started working together instead of arguing. Sojin had a breakthrough one evening. I think I understand now, he said. We're trying to combine two philosophies. Our way seeks perfection. Jiho's way seeks survival. What if we do both? How? Taeyeon asked. We use our advanced technology as the primary systems, Sojin explained, his tail swishing with excitement. But we build in human-style backups, multiple layers, manual overrides, simple mechanical systems that can run if everything else fails. They started redesigning everything with this new approach. Taeyeon's quantum recycling system stayed, but they added traditional filtration and storage systems as backups. If the quantum system failed, the ship could switch to older, simpler technology. It wouldn't be as efficient, but it would work. Doyeon's resource distribution model remained the foundation, but they added physical stores of essential supplies scattered throughout the ship. If the distribution system failed, people could access emergency supplies directly. Hyerin's genetic adaptations were made optional instead of mandatory, and they added traditional medical facilities that could treat people without genetic modifications. Minho's AI navigation stayed as primary control, but they added manual navigation stations and trained multiple crew members to pilot the ship without AI assistance. The design grew larger and more complex, but in a different way than before. It wasn't complex because of advanced technology. It was complex because every system had layers of protection. It looks ugly, Hyerin said one day, staring at their design. The ship had bulges where they'd added storage, extra modules for backup systems, visible mechanical components that would have been hidden in a sleeker design. It looks safe, Jiho countered. Form follows function. The function is keeping people alive for 100 years. The third week was refinement and testing. Professor Velness had provided simulation software that could throw random disasters at their designs. They ran thousands of simulations. Their ship survived them. Not always gracefully. In one simulation, the quantum recycling failed. 3 storage modules were damaged and half the navigation system went offline. But the backup systems kicked in. The crew managed to repair critical systems using the backup tools and supplies. Everyone survived. It's not pretty, but it works, Doyen admitted, even when everything goes wrong. On presentation day, the workroom was packed. All 6 teams would present their colony ship designs, and Professor Wellness would evaluate them in front of the entire class. The first team presented an elegant ship that used advanced AI to manage every system. It was beautiful, sleek, and highly efficient. The second team showed a modular design that could reconfigure itself for different situations. Very clever. The third team had created a biological ship that grew and adapted like a living organism. Impressive technology. The fourth and fifth teams had similarly advanced designs, each one more impressive than the last. Then it was Jiho's team's turn. They projected their ship design, and Jiho heard people whisper. Their ship was bigger than the others, bulkier. It had odd protrusions and visible mechanical systems. Next to the sleek designs that came before, it looked primitive. Seojin presented first, explaining their philosophy. We combined advanced alien technology with human survival thinking. Every primary system has backup systems. Every backup has a backup. Taeyeon showed the recycling systems. If our quantum recyclers fail, we have filtration. If filtration fails, we have stored water and supplies. If stores are damaged, we have emergency protocols for rationing and recovery. They went through each system. Power generation with 3 independent backup sources. Medical facilities with both advanced and traditional capabilities. Multiple navigation systems. Distributed storage. Manual overrides on every automated system. Training programs that taught every colonist basic survival and repair skills. When they finished, the room was quiet. Professor Wellness studied their design carefully. Questions? She asked the class. A student from Team 2 raised their hand. Why is it so bulky? All those backup systems add unnecessary mass. They're not unnecessary if you need them, Minho replied. But the primary system shouldn't fail, another student said. They're designed to last 100 years. Designed to, yes, High Aaron said. But what if they don't? What if something unexpected happens? More questions came. Some students thought the design was brilliant. Others thought it was overcomplicated and paranoid. The debate got heated. Finally, Professor Wellness held up one crystalline hand for silence. Let's test these designs properly, she said. She loaded each ship design into her simulation software. But this wasn't the standard simulation the teams had been using for testing. This was something else. I'm going to run a comprehensive disaster simulation, the professor explained. 10,000 random variables. Cosmic radiation. Equipment failures, human errors, unexpected diseases, meteor impacts, power fluctuations, and more. Every disaster that could happen in a 100-year voyage. Let's see which ships survive. The first ship's simulation started. It ran smoothly for 37 years. Then a cascade failure in the AI system caused multiple critical problems at once. The crew couldn't recover. The simulation ended with catastrophic life support failure. Mission failed. The second ship lasted 42 years before its modular systems became too damaged to reconfigure. Mission failed. The third ship's biological systems were infected by an unexpected mutation. Without traditional medicine as backup, it couldn't contain the spread. Mission failed at 51 years. The fourth and fifth ships failed at 39 and 44 years respectively. Each one fell to a different disaster, but the result was always the same. One critical system failed, and without proper backups, everything collapsed. The room was completely silent as Professor Wellness loaded the final simulation. Jiho's team's ship. The simulation started. Years passed. Disasters struck. The quantum recyclers failed at year 33, but backup filtration systems engaged. A meteor damaged 2 storage modules at year 47, but supplies were distributed throughout the ship, so the colonists had enough. The AI navigation went offline at year 59, and the crew switched to manual control. A disease outbreak at year 72 was contained because they had both advanced medical facilities and traditional isolation protocols. The ship limped along. Systems failed and were repaired or replaced by backups. Nothing worked perfectly. There were close calls and near disasters. But the ship kept going. At year 100, it arrived at its destination. Battered, with half its systems running on backup power and emergency protocols, but it arrived. All 10,000 colonists survived.